rolling, we might as well do this. Okay, thank you for all the questions. They've helped out because there were lots I wouldn't have thought to ask, and there are going to be a few that I can't answer because there are no answers for them yet. We can answer some of the questions here. I've got a Bailey on a Parajet V2 there, a Bailey V5S. We've got the EOS Quattro on a Wasp Hexo, and Giles over here is building his Maverick, his Monster on a Parajet Maverick frame. So there are lots of tests that we can't do, like we're not going to be taking engines off of frames, so there won't be pictures of bare engines hanging on scales. There is 2 litres of fuel in each motor, so when we weigh them, they'll all be weighed fair. Giles has got a reserve in his harness, so when we weigh them, we'll put an old reserve of mine just in the harness of these. So as 4-strokes go, it's all I've known since I got into paramotoring 2.5 years ago, but it's clear that there are a lot of people who are not aware of it at all, or some people think that they're like yesterday's technology or something like that. So if you think that, it's no worries. But 15 years ago, Paul Bailey made the Bailey, what would it have been?
V1.
V1, okay, and now we're on a V5S. Lots of people were trying to make 4-strokes at the time, and Paul Bailey nailed it with that one, with the crankcase and how he made everything work. I'm not going to pretend I know. Giles knows a lot more than I do about that. So 4-strokes and 2-strokes. Yes, 2-strokes have more power to weight. They are lighter. There's less components in a 2-stroke. It's a very simple engine. A 4-stroke, by comparison, is more complicated. There are more moving parts. Oh, and it's heavier, less power to weight in a 4-stroke. I think that's just always going to be a fact. I like my 4-stroke because A, it's all I've ever known. The power is always been enough for me. I can climb at about 300 foot a minute on the wing I fly, etc. It doesn't need a lot of maintenance. You don't need to know a lot about engines to own and run a 4-stroke. Every 10 hours I'm supposed to check the valve gaps. I do that sometimes, and then once a year for fun I change the oil and the filter. And basically, from what I've heard, they will just run and run and run until they don't, and when they don't, it's usually bigger and more expensive. I don't have to, 2-strokers will disagree, but I don't have to know what temperature I'm running at, what RPM I'm running at. I don't have to monitor any of that, and I know that 2-strokers don't have to. A lot of them do. A lot of them like tinkering, a lot of them are mechanics naturally. I am not. so as far as 4-strokes go, I like it. So the reason that this, if you don't know about 4-strokes, the reason that this is sort of like a long awaited thing is it should be, as far as power goes, closer to the Monster than it is to the V5S. It should be. It's lighter probably than a V5S. So maybe it's a middle ground. I know that 4-stroke paramotorists are interested in this, me being one of them. I know that people who make trikes are interested in it. I know that people who fly tandem a lot are interested in it, and people who do cross country, obviously. That's the other thing. The difference between the two is a 4-stroke uses a lot less fuel than a 2-stroke. What do you get fuel burn? I know it depends on what wing you've got and how much you weigh, etc. But what do you get roughly?
On this, with the way the carb's set up, I get around 4 litres an hour.
7 litres an hour, right? Whereas
4 litres an hour.
Whereas on my Bailey, I budget for 3 litres an hour, and that is usually enough to give me a decent safety margin. So, you know, under 3 litres an hour. General flying, obviously, if you go a long way, trims out, etc., or doing other stuff. All of these are general figures, aren't they? You're not going to get. If somebody tells you that this burns something per hour, it's going to depend on how heavy they are, what wing they're on, all that kind of stuff.
What the trim setting is.
What the trim setting is, all the variables. So a lot of the tests that we do today are going to be general, and results may vary, your mileage may vary, etc. You built that. Okay, stopwatch. January he started. So we've got, basically, in order to answer a lot of the questions, we can do, what do we say? Starting, what it feels like, weight in comparison to these other machines and frames, Thrust, we can measure that, you know, we can comparatively measure the thrust. We can't definitively measure thrust, but we can do the same test on all 3 machines. What was the other thing? Oh, sound as well. We can listen to all of them, etc. And then hopefully Giles will be able to get a flight test later this week. Nigel Dunlop, a Bailey pilot, did one. That'll be towards the end of the video, along with hopefully Giles' flight test and my flight test. So apologies if this is a long video. You're supposed to keep them under 20 minutes, but those that are interested will stick around, and those that aren't will aren't. So let's do it. Okay, that was a mess, but we can cut all the shit out. Was I recording? Yes.
I think my mustard's gone off the boil. That's quite impressive, yeah.
Thrust compared to your Monster?
It feels more than my Monster. I think my Monster needs a tune-up.
Monster. The Monster that everyone knows and loves. There's the exhaust that everyone loves, especially this bit of it just here. Yours is okay. How many hours you got on that?
About 20.
20. Oh, it's due. Basic 2-stroke.
Suck, squeeze, bang, bang.
Yeah. Bailey V5S. So not many people have seen these, but tell us about it, Giles.
The main difference between the 2-stroke and the 4-stroke is the fact that on the 4, these hold the oil in the sump, and actually moving the oil around for lubrication is half the battle, as well as supporting the output shaft of this, and that's where the insides are so key to keeping it from failing. And when people have tried to make their own 4-strokes, what was it, the egg motors?
Yeah,
there were bits and elements inside that would just naturally fail after a certain period of time. And the biggest difference you'll see, especially on this engine, is just how short the exhaust is.
Yeah.
So this is it just shows you how short the exhaust needs to be to still generate. I mean, this is only 20 and a half horsepower at the RPM specified in the manual, but they're just so quiet, and it's got a lovely deep burr sound, whereas you get a rasp out of the 2-stroke.
We'll do noise checks in a bit, as long as we don't upset the neighbours.
Yeah. Geeky fact: this is 3.2 to 1 reduction ratio. The Wasp is 3 to 1 reduction ratio, and for the 2-stroke to generate the power into the prop, it is 2.67 or 2.68 to 1. So it just shows you the different size.
Considerably smaller, something here.
Yeah. The biggest difference between the 4-strokes and 2-stroke is the airflow rate. To stop carburetor icing on the 2-strokes, they use an air box system that circulates the air and actually reduces the chances of carburetor icing. On the 4-strokes you don't need that, so they can just use a standard K&N wire filter, air filter, straight into the carburetor. What you'll see on the other carburetor is there's actually a choke mechanism. On the Bailey they've blocked that off. It just doesn't need the choke mechanism at all to start the engines. Generally there are 3 ways a Bailey won't start. The exhaust valve clearance isn't sufficient, you haven't primed it enough, or you haven't turned it on. Generally there's the reasons that they don't start.
And I've had all of those problems.
The main difference I have seen is the carburetor is mounted on a big chunky rubber bushing. Now this is actually where you've had an issue before.
Yeah, so this is a perishable part with a Bailey. This needs replacing. Obviously the fuel eats away at it over time. Some people have mentioned frothing inside the carb because of the vibration. The only trouble I've ever had with it is this perishing and splitting, and that's only because I just didn't keep an eye on it and replace it when I should have.
The other big difference I have seen is Bailey, because these start so easily, they have a 2-stage system for turning ignition on, because these need very little RPM to start. And when I was starting it earlier, I noticed that it was kicking back, which is generally an indication that the ignition coil is too good. It's sparking too soon, but that just helps it start. It's just a bit of a bugger.
And Bailey have had to reduce the efficiency of the starting system.
Yes,
did you say?
It's been too efficient, so they increased the gap so it's not as powerful.
Cool.
The first thing I did notice when I looked at it is this is a cast piece. I appreciate these are the beta side of it. So this is a cast piece, that's a CNC piece backplate, whereas the Bailey is all CNC manufactured, right, as opposed to cast. and that goes all the way down to the oil sump at the bottom. Very similar process. They just use a sight glass for checking the oil, but again, keeping the oil flowing around the engine is
There's like a high pressure
key.
oil pipe around here.
That is
It's about 2 inches long and goes straight into the.
Yeah, so that's just going to be a return flow.
Oh, okay.
The exhaust is much more able to move. It's got much more freedom to move in this, but that's because it's significantly longer. There's only 2 springs here, one on the back, and one at the front. So if any one of those fails, this knuckle joint means that this could actually come off. So I'd almost like to see a safety system on that. But it does sound so sweet. It just so smooth.
So this is a silencer off of a scooter or a bike or something, isn't it?
Yeah. But again, the whole thing is rubber mounted. Although this on all exhausts is generally where they fracture and fail. But that's just the nature of metal. The carburettor is actually the same. It's still CVK carb, but the CC of this engine is 236, whereas the V5S is 210.
210, yeah.
Again, all the blanking plates seem to be the same. So it's almost like the top half of the engine is identical. It's the lower part of the casing that seems to be different, because you've got almost identical plate on yours.
Yeah. Yeah.
There is no rubber mounting.
That is a direct join, isn't it?
There's a rubber gasket underneath there, but not a lot. I'm trying to see if that will still actually allow it to flex, because our Jubilee clamps.
Should be remembered that this is a shakedown beta test.
Yep.
It's not a finished article. So, choke.
Yeah. As was probably quite obvious when I was trying to start it, I physically couldn't get to this. And how many people try to start this from cold and haven't needed the choke?
6 at the point right now. There will be more, hopefully Monday, Tuesday.
So I think this might be one of those things of going back to EOS and going, do you really need the choke?
Yeah. Yeah, we've had 6 people start it and no one's touched the choke. And generally it's always started on the 3rd pull, I think.
Unless it's me.
Yeah, I think Nigel went to 4.
Yeah.
Same as you.
Useful having the tacho as well, and the sort of NGK boot on that one. Forced air cooling is going to be essential on these, because there's just no airflow from the actual main body that's going to get to this, so forced air is the only way to go.
Yeah, same as the Bailey.
Yeah.
Cool.
Other than that, it's pretty much very similar components, but how you do the oil flow, that is the key in how that flows. I'm sure there's many people with vastly more knowledge on 4-strokes than me.
Oh wow. Yeah, that lightness. But I can't get over this weight. It's the lack of it.
That's on there. And then that needs to go in there. $30.8. Okay, that's already got a reserve on it. 28.65. Okay. Here's the Quattro.
The reserve needs to go in.
1 reserve. There's nothing to put that to. 30.1. Okay, go. 1 Giles equals
Error.
1 at a time, please. Shout out.
82.4 kilograms. Cool. 1 Bailey and a V2 plus reserve 119.3. Right, Maverick plus 1 Giles. $113.3. $114.8.
There's no, that's fine either, it's quite cool. That's much smoother than mine. Be enough for me, wouldn't it?
So what do you normally fly, Emily?
I've got a Maverick Atom 80.
And this was smoother to start?
Oh gosh, it was amazing.
Right, just having a quick check. Don't want to stand on that. I've done those prop bolts up and torqued it. Let's have a look at the oil. Yep, I don't know if the camera will see that. There's the oil in the sight glass. Flexible coupling, 2 springs, and a sexy motorbike exhaust. Okay, just making sure. Right, have we got fuel to the top? That's primed. Yeah, fuel to the carburettor. Right, this is my first time starting this, and first time putting this harness on, so harness might not fit correctly. Oh wow! It feels like a mini plane. I genuinely wasn't expecting that. That is stupidly light. It might just be that it's closer in on your back. Right, tacho and a very. Oh, I forgot. Yes, because this primes it, doesn't it?
Three pumps on that. That's it.
Because it's got an accelerator pump, as per the Bailey. That as you move, 4-strokes need an accelerator pump to make them go. They don't just open the Venturi and allow the fuel through. Right. So me as a most of my machines in the past, it's there, but on this machine, it's using my my dominant hand this time, which is quite nice.
Are you left-handed?
I am left-handed, yeah. Nobody knows that until now. So right. So I normally just instinctively pulled through, which probably isn't helping this test, but the choke is not on. The choke is not reachable. Yeah, I can't reach it. No, I can't actually physically reach the choke. No, because of that. So, point to note, I can't reach the choke on the ground, while in the harness, sorry. So let's give this a bit of a pull. It feels quite heavy in the pull. So two compression like that. Oh, I failed. It's actually showing the RPM though. Oh, has a hell of a kickback. Ow. What's the idle? Quite low idle, but that's good. It's slowly warming up. As you can tell, the RPM is now just over 2,000, which for 4-strokes is about right. 1,800 to 2,000, maybe 2.2. But that feels... it's definite vibration that I wouldn't have on my MAV, but it's very low RPM. So let's take it the same RPM. That's very sensitive, actually. I feel there's definitely more vibration there, but I need to do a cross check. It could be about the same. So just make sure it's safe. Just going to go and take this up. I'm going to do it slowly, and I'm going to do a harder test after that. That feels solid. That power is very, very solid. Wow, okay, I need a bit more of a brace. 7,800 RPM. I can hold that just, but I'm very, very deep in the brakes. It peters out at, stops producing any more thrust about 7.7, 7.8. It stops producing any more thrust, but just for the RPM. So now I'm going to do a slam check. I need to go against this for a slam check. Are you clear? There's definite torque in there, but that's static on the ground with no aerodynamics. But that actually, let me go up again. Clear behind. That pickup is very good pickup on the engine. And goes back down to idle, and then slowly brings itself back down again. Yeah. So now it's warm, it's sitting there at 2.3, 2.4, which is what I would expect a 4-stroke to idle at. So that's all good. So that's a cold start with me being an absolute biff, having never touched it before. So let's see how well it does. With, again, no throttle. Clear behind, no one else coming up there. Oh, that's lush. And then straight to idle. That starts quite easy because it's not my dominant hand. I'm not quite used to it. So. Thrust.
So yeah, compare it to a Monster. I know you've flown Baileys.
Yeah. This delivers the thrust very quickly. It is like just a punch in your back. So there is no delay. It's picking up very quickly because the thrust band is very narrow. It goes from 2.5 to 7,800, pretty much like that. Whereas a Monster will take a little bit more time to flick up to that full power.
What size prop have you got on your Monster?
I've got a 125 on my Monster. This is a 130.
So you got 125E prop. This is a 130E prop.
130E prop.
Okay, cool. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
There is natural vibration at the bottom end, but when I was registering that, it was very low in the RPMs until it had warmed up. When it warmed up, there was virtually no vibration. It's a good kick in the back when it goes.
Okay, basic noise test. Just going to run each one up. Give it a buzz at idle, give it a buzz at full throttle, put it down, pick up the next one, do the same thing. Let's do it. Future me here. These sound tests were a bit of a cock-up. I think my camera has obviously, especially for the full throttle, has equalised all the volumes out. Yeah, thinking back, I should have just recorded the sounds on an independent microphone that didn't have like software to do that. But in our defence, we were trying to squeeze a lot into a windy day with crappy weather in and out because of the rain, etc. So 4 strokes are quieter than 2 strokes. It's a nicer sound. You can hear the tone in these tests, but not the volume. Okay, thrust test. We're going to just do the kitchen bathroom scales against the wall test. They're not definitive figures, it's just comparison between the 3. The only thing we could have done to make this fairer is put a 130 prop on the MAV. So again, it's all comparisons. It's not. This isn't a laboratory, so you know. Ready?
I got a 43.
And again.
Go again. Yeah. Right.
Okay. Say when. Now.
When.
Oh, it smells good. And again.
'54. Yeah. That's really hard, hang on.
There you go.
Go again. Get it! Whew. I can't hold anymore.
59.3. So that's not, it's not a lab test. There are variations between these machines. It's not like a completely fair thrust bench comparison, but the test was done in the same way with 3 machines. So not surprised the Bailey was right down on there. But as I say, I've launched that Bailey with a 24 wing carrying 15 litres of fuel and a tent and all the camping stuff for the Icarus. So I know it didn't climb very fast, but it got there. So there you go, that's part one. We did some tests. We did what we could, not laboratory conditions, windy conditions. Part two should be out very soon, tomorrow. And at the end of that, I'll do a sort of conclusion of everything we've learned and seen. So in short, this engine, as it is, beta test version, is slightly heavier than a Monster, although burns less fuel, and more powerful than Giles' Maverick Monster that we've got here. So the power's not really a surprise because it's got a lot more cc's, 236, and it's being compared to Giles' Monster Plus, I think it's called, with 185. Also, it's got a 130 prop on it, and Giles' motor's got a 125 on it. Now both the four strokes here have got 130 props on compared to Giles' 125. But I gave it to somebody to put it on and run up, and they fly a Monster with a 130 prop, and they say that their Monster feels more powerful than this. So as far as thrust goes, it's there or thereabouts, directly comparable to a Monster as far as thrust goes, I think. Anyway, I'll do a proper conclusion after the flight test in the next video, which should be out, yeah, assuming I get it all edited, should be out tomorrow. So yeah, thanks for all the questions, and I'll see you tomorrow.